Now, it's Boomer Life, lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
I don't care too much for money. Money can buy me love, can buy me love.
Welcome to Boomer Life on CIL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton, and I don't know about you, but I care about money. A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for both yourself and for your family. And on Boomer Life today, we're talking about your financial future with our guest, JimDoyle. Now, Jim is a senior financial consultant with Investors Group Financial Services, Inc. Confidence in your own financial situation and your options goes a long way to helping create a better outcome. So for today's show, I could actually say this two ways. Frankly, we'll be speaking about money, or we'll be speaking frankly about money, retirement, and your financial future. So when it comes to building the life that you want for yourself and your family, you need a well-thought-out plan. So, Jim, I want to say welcome back to the show. And I understand that you've been doing this for 26 years now with the same firm. I think that speaks volumes, and I think it's kind of rare.
Thank you, Joanne. You know, with Investors Group, I believe in two things, okay? You need to be committed to your craft, and you need to be continually improving your skill set. Otherwise, your value and relevance to clients, it just diminishes. And people these days, they're expecting value. They want a clear demonstration of the value that we can bring to the relationship. And one way that I do this is my ongoing commitment to ongoing education.
Well, I couldn't agree more. You do bring a lot to the table, a lot of qualifications and a lot of experience. All of this is especially important when we look at today's subject matter, which is money, retirement, and your financial future. Topics that require more than just experience. They require patience, understanding, and a lot of compassion as well. In one of our past shows, I was really surprised when you mentioned that less than a fifth of Canadians seek the help of a financial advisor when they're preparing for retirement. Is there anything more that you'd like to share with us on that topic?
I'd sure like to change that.
Of course you would.
A recent BlackRock survey suggested that financial advice could go a long ways in helping Canadians plan for their retirement properly. There's a huge discrepancy between Canadians' expected retirement income and their actual savings habits. The survey looked at 2,000 responses, and what was noteworthy was the lack of investment knowledge, with only 35% claiming to be informed. And here's the scary part, 51% comparing investing to gambling.
Oh my, it sounds like the investment industry really needs to step up to the plate when it comes to educating clients.
I understand that the recent investment volatility has a lot to do with how people feel about the industry and about investing in general. And this is just my opinion, but I think there is clearly a need for renewed commitment to financial literacy and investor education, not just to inspire confidence, but to help Canadians realize that they have choices. And here's a big one for you. November 1st starts Financial Literacy Month.
Oh, this is perfect timing. So should Canadians be more comfortable in seeking professional financial advice, and how can we be more comfortable doing that?
I'm going to answer that with a yes, yes, and a yes.
Okay.
According to the survey, there's an expectation of an average annual income of about $46,900 a year for a 25-year retirement. Yet the average Canadian has savings of about $70,700 in total, which is barely going to last 18 months. Mm-hmm. So yes, I think Canadians could benefit from seeking professional advice.
I've heard you tell our listeners many times since the show started that people are living longer, and this really highlights the importance of planning to have your money last as long as you do.
Because they need their money to last, and they haven't done the proper planning, they need to do more with their money now. So they're looking for the sexy, hot product that's going to magically solve their problems.
Yeah, the quick pill, right? It's much like a recipe. If you combine these ingredients this way, cook it for this amount of time, you'll end up with the recipe for success. If you get the recipe wrong, well, we all know how that goes.
Absolutely. So today's sexy, hot product might be alternative investments, everything from private equity to hedge funds, REITs, and commodities and currents. And again, this doesn't cover all of them. If liquidity is important, this means getting your hands on your money when you need it. A lot of these investments are not appropriate. And not every hedge strategy is liquid. I really believe advisors need to do their due diligence on what types of strategies are in these sorts of products. In essence, it really comes down to being familiar with the needs of the investor. Advisors, they need to evaluate what a client wants from an alternative investment, as well as understanding their capacity for risk and liquidity.
Well, I'm hearing you. So if you had a tip, where would you go with this?
I'd probably suggest bringing the sexy down in their investment selections. Instead of chasing performance, a well-thought-out financial plan may be a better tool to help you achieve your long-term financial goals with greater security. And if you haven't been doing that planning, chances are choosing exotic investments isn't going to fix your problem.
So what are you really saying, Jim?
I'm saying call me. Start planning. Sit down with me. Let's look at your situation and see what you can do to help where you want to be financially. If you think investing is like gambling, I can understand the reluctance to take blind chances. And from that perspective, they're right. However, here's the key point. It doesn't have to stay that way.
Well, you mentioned that people want value, that they're seeking value from their advisor relationships.
So let's just look at one aspect of financial planning. Cash flow management. It's not uncommon that when we talk to folks, they're not familiar with all of their current sources of income. Which of their investments have the capacity to produce income and which ones can distribute it?
I had someone tell me once that income planning was just make as much as you can so you can spend as much as you can.
Well, I think a lot of people do that as well. But let me give you an example of how we add tangible value. Aside from the regular streams of income, like your pensions or your Canada pension or your old age security, when you need to take money from your investments regularly, deciding which investments to take it from can go a long ways towards having financial consequences down the road.
Well, what do you mean by consequences? Can you give us an example or?
Well, absolutely. Things like paying too much tax or running out of money are a few. And imagine someone who's retired and still working part-time. We're seeing more and more of that. Should they take their RIF income now? Should they start their CPP or their OAS? Or should they defer them? Should they take from their non-registered investments or their tax-free savings accounts or RSPs? And of course, they don't want to pay too much tax. And these are questions or concerns that we hear often from clients.
So what I think I'm hearing is that just because you're retired, it doesn't mean you should automatically start your RIF or start claiming your old age security or your CPP just because you're 65.
Absolutely. You know, if you're lucky enough to have retired before 65, then you might want to consider how to bridge your income needs until your government benefits start coming in. And one of my favorites, of course, is looking at things of how do you split incomes. And this is where we as financial planners, we earn our keep. And here's a good tip, if I can, for our listeners. Starting in January of this upcoming year, your CPP and OAS deferral amounts are going to be increasing.
What does that actually mean?
Well, it wasn't too long ago that you couldn't defer starting to take your old age security. So if you don't need the income, why pay all the extra tax on money you don't need?
That's a good point. In deciding when to start receiving your old age pension, what factors should you consider taking into account?
I think you should consider your personal situation and that of your spouse, and taking into account such things as your current and future sources of income, your employment status now and in the future, the impact on tax credits today and as well as in the future, your current health, and of course your plans for retirement.
Sometimes it's what you don't know that could actually hurt you. So I like this advice. Can you give us another example of value that we might see from a planner rather than a broker or an investment advisor?
Well, with the cost of living being so high and interest rates being so low, it's times like these that what becomes important is how much you keep, not necessarily what you make. It's easy math to figure out how much you're making, but I'm not sure a lot of people understand that they have an opportunity to make better choices about how much they keep on an after-tax basis.
Okay, Jim, you've whetted our appetite. I know there's more.
Okay, fair enough. The first part is tax efficiency. Are you taking investment incomes in a tax-efficient manner? The second part is tax deferral. Okay, are you putting off taxation until some point in the future when it might be more advantageous to take the tax hit?
Well, what does that actually mean?
Well, as you may know, when it comes to earning income outside of your RSPs, interest income is fully taxable. Dividend income is tax preferred, which means it enjoys a reduced tax rate, and capital gains enjoys preferential tax treatment as well, where you're only getting taxed on 50% of the actual gain that you realize.
So, okay, here's another one. Can you explain what you mean by realize?
Great question, Joanna. I really like this one. There's two types of capital gains. There's the realized capital gains and there's unrealized capital gains. The realized ones come about as a result of you selling something or crystallizing or realizing, or dare we say, triggering the gain. Okay? The other type is the unrealized capital gain. And this is a beautiful thing. It allows for tax deferral, which means you can choose when to trigger the capital gain at some point in the future when your income might be lower.
I actually like how you got excited talking about unrealized gains. His face lit up. In today's search for value, I think what you've told us so far this evening exemplifies what good advice is all about. So thank you, Jim. You're listening to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton, and today we are speaking with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. To learn more about Jim and how he helps financially comfortable Canadians, it can be as simple as giving him a phone call. So please, here's the number, 604-682-5431. And still a lot more to come in this conversation with Jim Doyle. A growing number of baby boomers are dipping into their retirement savings to help out their kids and aging parents. Jim addresses challenges and considerations to keep in mind to avert financial meltdown. That's all coming up next on Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.